Hello everyone, I am back and it is time to talk some WWE and AEW. There's been a lot of stuff going on, especially what happened on last night's Raw, and a lot of speculation, a lot of fun things coming up in the future, and I want to talk about all of that stuff. But before I get into all of that, a few updates on my end. A lot of things have been happening the last couple of weeks, and some things are going to be happening as the weeks go on. Baby's due in July. Everything's looking great. Everything's looking healthy. So that's good. My wife and I are going to close on a house. We finally found a house, and I'll have a new filming space. I feel like I've moved like 10 times in the last decade. Like my video room always looks different every couple of years, it seems. But I'm going to be moving into a new house. That's very exciting. And I wanted my my child to live in a nice home, and I wanted to move out of this place. So it's nice that we're doing that, although it is a little crazy to be doing that on top of the pregnancy and everything else. And to make matters even crazier, I got into a minor car accident a couple weeks ago. Nobody got hurt, thank God, but I was without a car for a couple of weeks, so that was kind of annoying, and that kind of slowed me down. Actually, that was what prevented me from getting my WWF NWA Dream card out. That's a video I'm still working on. I'm planning on that being the next video that comes out, so be on the lookout for that. But it had a lot of things going on. Work got crazy, and I'm actually working on another cybersecurity-related certification to improve my professional standing. So everything is just busy on my end. Another video that's going to be coming from me in May, for sure. Some updates on the book, Godzilla, the Monster Fight Record. This next video is going to reveal the covers of both volumes 1 and 2, and reveal who wrote the forewords to the book. Now, chalk this up to me being an inexperienced self-publishing first-time author. But when I was looking for someone to write a foreword for the book, I figured, oh, you know, if I reach out to somebody, they might not get back to me, so I'll reach out to multiple people. I ended up reaching out to 3 to write a foreword for this book. And I guess I should have assumed better of people, because all 3 of them got back to me, and I ended up with 3 forewords. And I thought, I might as well just use all 3 of them. So I'm going to use all 3 forewords in both Volume 1 and 2. And my next video update on the book will announce who those 3 people are. What I will say now is that they are 3 people who are associated with Godzilla fandom. One of them ran a Godzilla website and has experience running a Godzilla fan website. One of them is a Godzilla author. And one of them has a presence on YouTube and has made Godzilla-related videos in the past. So those are your 3 clues. And then when I do the announcement video, you'll see who those names are and who it is. So I was very excited to have them be a part of this project and have them lend their voice to this book. And it was really cool seeing their names. When I was working on the manuscript a couple weeks ago, it was really cool to see their names attached to something that I wrote. I was like, man, this... And, you know, I was shooting for a September, August, you know, late August, early September release date, because I want to get this thing out before Toho releases their next Godzilla movie in November. And it looks like we're going to meet that. Like I said, I've got my covers, got my forwards. Editing on Volume 1 is almost done. Editing on Volume 2 is about halfway done, and I think we're going to meet that kind of August, September timeframe that I was shooting for. So that's all very good. I've got everything I need. It's just a matter of fine-tuning everything and just getting it ready for release. And I think in that video I'm also going to talk a little bit about the goings-on in the world of Godzilla, certain updates. We got a very small teaser for the new Godzilla and Kong film with a title and glimpses of who is potentially the new antagonist for Godzilla and Kong. I'll talk a little bit about that. We got a photo of the new Toho film that's coming out in November. So there's a lot of Godzilla stuff balls up in the air right now. And I'm still waiting for some kind of an update on the Apple Plus show. I feel like that one's been hanging in limbo for a while, but they say it's coming out in 2023. I still haven't seen anything. Gamera is coming to Netflix. Excited for that. I'm not a huge fan of the animation style, but I still want to see it because I haven't seen, you know, there hasn't been new Gamera stuff in a long time, so it'd be nice to see the giant super turtle again. So in May, you'll be getting a video from me that's very book-centric and very kaiju-centric, so be on the lookout for that. But I think that's all the updates I have, so let's just go ahead and get started. I guess we'll start with WWE and their big announcement last night. And you know me. If you've watched my videos for any length of time, you know me. I don't like having extra belts. I say they should reduce the number of belts. I hated it when AEW added a bunch of belts. I hate it whenever WWE adds a belt. It's just, adding more belts is not going to fix a problem, or it's not going to make a show better. It just always devalues. It always devalues when you add more championships than you need. I don't want to say that, like, you know, always adding a belt is a bad idea, but adding a belt should be like adding something new and fresh to the product, like a women's division or a cruiserweight division, where, I mean, I could do a whole other video on how a cruiserweight division just wouldn't work in today's culture, and there's a reason why WWE's version of it really didn't work, but that's another video for another time, or a hardcore division, or something like that. Like, adding a new belt in that regard to add something new and exciting to the product, it's like, okay, we'll see how it goes. But generally, when you add, like, another version of the Intercontinental title, which any mid-card title is like, it's just Intercontinental title, part 800, and AEW is more than guilty of that. Whenever you add a second set of tag titles when you already have tag titles, whenever you add another women's title when you already have a women's title, it just makes everything feel more bloated than they need to be. And this is one of the major problems that AEW had. I did an entire video about it, where it's like, you look at all of the belts that they've added, and then you throw Ring of Honor on top of that, then you throw AAA and New Japan, whose belts show up from time to time on there. It's just, it's too much. It's just way too much. It's impossible to care about all these friggin' title matches that they do. And WWE made an announcement last night, specifically Triple H, where with the new draft coming up, whichever show that Roman Reigns is not on, the other show is going to get a new WWE World Heavyweight Championship. They unveiled the belt, and I have some thoughts. Number one, that belt is hideous. It looks like they wanted to remake the big gold belt, which I think a lot of us would like. I'm one of that. I'm old man yelling at the sky and holding on to my past and member berries and all this other stuff. Yeah, sure. The big gold belt and the Winged Eagle WWF belt are the two best looking world title belts of all time, and nobody can tell me otherwise. They are the two best. They're 1A and 1B. Whichever one is my favorite depends on however I'm feeling that day. But those are the two nicest looking championship belts, world title championship belts of all time. And nothing WWE's designed since then has looked as good, in my opinion. There have been some good ones. I thought the Undisputed title belt looked pretty nice. But generally speaking, like the Winged Eagle belt is just the best. And for WCW, the big gold belt was the best, no question. And this belt looks like they wanted to have the big gold belt again, but they just had to plaster that gaudy-looking WWE logo just right on the front. I know, again, old man, I get it, branding, and you got to treat the audience like it's stupid. They're not going to know it's a WWE title unless you plaster the logo and you make it the focal point of the entire design of the belt. And you got to treat people like they're morons, we're living in idiocracy, whatever. And that's their point of view, not necessarily mine. I think if you design a nice-looking belt, people will associate it with the company. But hey, what do I know? I mean, that Winged Eagle belt was pretty iconic, and it made me think WWF whenever I looked at it. But hey, whatever. But AEW has AEW plastered right on the front of their world belt, but their logo doesn't look stupid. So it doesn't look that good. UFC's logo doesn't look stupid, so it looks actually kind of nice. You know, front and center on the big gold plating on the center of the belt. The WWE logo looks so, like, gaudy and stupid. Like, it always looks bad. Like, I remember when Rock unveiled the last version, the modern version of the WWE Championship, and I looked at it and I'm like, I mean, it's better than the spinner, but this still looks stupid because of that big gaudy WWE thing. Maybe if they were still using the WWF logo from the 80s, I wouldn't mind as much, but that thing just looks awful to me. And it just, anytime they make it the focal point of a championship belt, it just looks terrible. But I also concede, like, the design of a belt doesn't necessarily matter all that much. I mean, at least they're not painting it blue or purple or red, like when they were obsessed with the fruit roll-up belts there for a while. But at least it doesn't have that problem. But they've designed some nice belts recently. Like, I think the new U.S. belt looks good. I think the new Intercontinental title belt looks good. I mean, I prefer the older one, but that one looks good. And I thought we were kind of moving away from the big WWE on the center of everything. And I saw this thing, I was like, oh god, that thing looks terrible. My comment on Twitter is that it looks like the spinner belt vomited on top of the big gold belt. And I hate it. It looks awful. But that's not necessarily the problem. I mean, belt designs come and go, and, you know, as long as it doesn't look like Jeff Hardy's personal belt from TNA, I think I'll live with it. My problem is the fact that this belt even exists at all. Because like I said, having two world champions, I've always hated it when they've had two world champions. Because to me, it just creates a confusion situation where no one is the man. Nobody is the guy. You have two the guys. And, it devalues what that spot means. And it's going to negatively impact the IC and US titles. Because those have kind of been elevated up to being like the brand championships. Like, the U.S. champion's the Raw champion. Not the biggest fan of Austin Theory, but it's like, whatever. Like, it feels like him being U.S. champion carries some weight, and it feels like an important role. And Gunther being the IC title holder makes him feel like the SmackDown champion, and it feels like it's a role that has some weight and is exciting. And, it's made IC and U.S. title matches mean more because you only have one guy who's the tippy-top, the guy. And then you have them as kind of perfectly acceptable tertiary champions that are brand specific. And that system kind of worked. And one of the reasons that WWE programming improved so much last year is that you only had Roman as the guy, the final boss, the belt holder, the main eventer. It made every title match feel bigger. Like the match with Logan Paul, like the match with Lesnar at SummerSlam, or even the match at the previous WrestleMania with Lesnar where they unified the belts, which wasn't the best match on planet Earth, but it felt like a big deal going in. This match with Cody felt huge. It was like the best WrestleMania main event in years. The match with Sami felt huge. Because Roman doesn't defend the belt all the time, and because you're not being beaten over the head with world title matches every single week. It actually, when one happens, it's like, ooh, I got to go out of my way to see Roman, because you don't get these very often. It's one of the reasons that Hogan's WCW world title reign during the Monday Night Wars really worked, because he didn't wrestle every week. And he was the most hated guy on the show. And the NWO were the main villains. So when you finally got to a point where somebody would get a title shot against him, it felt like a big deal. So when Luger beat him and Goldberg beat him and Sting faced him at Starrcade, it felt like a big deal. We can talk about the execution of the Starrcade thing until the cows come home, but generally speaking, when you scale back, it makes things more important. And I think that was a major plus to WWE programming last year, where you only had one world champion. And Roman did feel like the world champion. And on a smaller scale, it improved the tag division to have both sets of tag titles with the Usos. It made so much more sense to do it that way. And it's, your tag division looks so much better when all the tag teams are going after the tag team champions, and all of them are vying and competing, and they're winning and losing matches against each other, instead of splitting the division into two, and then you've got like 3 teams on one side and 3 teams on the other side. It's like, well, division's not very big, so who cares? That was a major plus for that as well, and it paid off big time at WrestleMania, because the tag title match main evented the show. So it makes matches feel more special. I think we've got this erroneous mindset that's infected the business, it's infected the fan base, where it's like, if you hold a belt, you're important. And it couldn't be any further from the truth. I've heard the term participation trophy get thrown around. And that's what a lot of belts feel like now. AEW definitely has this problem, and WWE kind of was starting to move away from that problem, and now it's right back in there with the world title, this new WWE World Heavyweight Championship that they've got floating around, which I'm not a fan of. I think it's a bad idea. I think it devalues it devalues Roman's spot, and I also think it will make the ultimate victory over Roman feel a little less impactful, because you have another guy running around claiming to be world champion. But who knows? Roman might win all 3 of them. So, like, maybe Roman at some point, he'll be like the J Crown title holder. He'll just have 20 belts or something crazy like that. But yeah, not a fan. And again, whenever they announce a new title, this feels like, it never feels like something that came from a place of creativity. It always feels like some kind of desperate flailing to kind of come up with something to trick the people into being excited for something for a couple of weeks. But I can just see it right now. We're just going to go right back to what it was in the mid-2000s, where you had 2 world champions, but nobody was the guy. And I was never a fan of that setup, and never liked it, and any attempts to move away from that, I was always in favor of. When Daniel Bryan won at WrestleMania 30, it was exciting because he was the only world champion. That's why it made it all the more impactful. And if we get to a point where, like, the world title match is opening up WrestleMania and treated like the popcorn match, or treated like something that they need to get out of the way, out of obligation, then that's going to be a problem, because then it devalues being world champion, and then all of the titles beneath it are going to suffer too, because the IC and US title aren't going to feel as important anymore either. So, again, not a fan of it. I personally don't I would prefer it if they just did away with the brand split, because it's just, I mean, it's just red WWE and blue WWE. Who cares? There's no difference between the two. Like, why even have a brand split? I don't understand the point. If they ran it in a way where Raw was Raw and SmackDown looked like, I don't know, like WCW Nitro. Or like, okay, let's go back to 2002 when they first did the brand split. If they had changed it, it's like, all right, one show's going to be WWE and the other show is going to be WCW Nitro. I would have loved it. And it's like, we get Nitro back, and it, hopefully presented in a way that feels authentic to WCW without doing any of the stupid shit that WCW did to ultimately ruin that show. That would be fantastic, and I would have been on board with it. But, you watch it in execution, it's red WWE and blue WWE. Who cares? And the bodies on the show are constantly flip-flopping back and forth anyway, so it's something that never really worked for me. And unless they really want to make one of the shows stylistically different from the other, there's really no point. And I've talked about that ad nauseum for years and years and years, like things they could do to make Raw and SmackDown different from each other, but they don't want to do that, so whatever. Now, who's going to win the World Heavyweight Championship? Who's going to win this new thing? I've seen some names floating around. Seth Rollins is a name I've seen floating around because he teased that he was going to win it on Raw. I've seen LA Knight's name thrown around. I want to talk a little bit about LA Knight because he's a guy that's been talked about a lot lately, is someone that should get a major push and be a main eventer and a world title holder and things like that. And I'll say this. I've been a fan of that guy since his Impact days. I loved him as Eli Drake. I thought he was one of the few bright spots they had at a time when Impact/TNA was falling off a cliff. He was like, this guy's funny. Dummy! Yeah. That guy's great. And he's very entertaining, very good on the mic, and I think he's a wonderful presence on the show. Is he main event caliber? I don't know, but I think it's okay if he's not. I think it's okay. You can get somebody like that to be a major fixture of the show, and do things that are substantial and not necessarily be a world champion. Perfect example, and this is one I always go to, and people kind of crap on the Honky Tonk Man, but Honky Tonk Man was a goofy character that was able to get a massive amount of heat, and the fans enjoyed seeing him get beat up, and whenever he did something, it seemed to carry some kind of weight because the fans hated him so much. And having a character like that, I think, is very valuable because it adds to the overall card. Now, could you put LA Knight in there up against Roman Reigns and have me believe that he could or should be in the same ring as Roman Reigns and believably beat him? That's a little bit of a harder sell for me. But but there's nothing wrong with being a mid-carder. There's nothing wrong with being a more important part of the show. And he's like, and he's been kind of screwed lately with the Bray Wyatt thing. Did not work at all, didn't do anybody any favors. And then it's WrestleMania in LA. His name is LA Knight, and they had absolutely nothing for him. Like, not even a segment. I mean, it's like, it practically writes itself. You have a guy named LA Knight, and your show's in LA. It's your biggest show of the year. Have him do the friggin' Elias spot. Like, how many times did Elias go out there and just play guitar and not even have a match? Like, you couldn't even come up with, like, something like that to get it, the largest audience that you have of the year to get eyeballs on this guy and have him do something. But yeah, I don't know if he would be my first choice to win this new World Heavyweight title because I don't necessarily view him as like a top tier main event talent. But should he be featured more and should he be a major fixture of the show? Absolutely. I think a guy that can talk that well and be that entertaining and be that funny, there's absolutely things that he can do on the show without question. And this is a guy like, if he was around in the Attitude Era, he would have flourished because they wouldn't have put him in the main event. He would have been like IC Euro title level, and he would have hit it out of the park because he would have been great. Because there are a lot of like mid-carders and lower tier guys in the Attitude Era that I actually was a big mark for. Like, you couldn't have found a bigger D'Lo Brown fan than me. But then if you ask me, it's like, should he be in the main event? I'm like, oh no, like, European title's his. Like, that's his belt. That's his baby. He should stay there. And I could see LA Knight being at that, like, Val Venus, D'Lo Brown type of level back in those days. So yeah, I think you could do tons of things with him that would be very entertaining. I just don't see him as like a main event player, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. And I'm saying that as a fan of the guy, but not everybody needs to be main eventer. William Regal was not main event caliber. Still great, still deserved to be on the show. Dean Malenko was not main event caliber. Still great, still deserved to be on the show. It's just, main eventer needs a certain star quality, and I don't know if, or they need a star quality and a certain believability to them, and I don't know if he has that. But I've been proven wrong before, so who knows? But as far as who's going to win this thing, I'll tell you what, a friend of mine, I was talking to him a couple weeks ago when WrestleMania first happened, and we were all talking about that main event. It's like, man, that show went from being like one of the best Manias ever to just feeling like you got punched in the dick, because that ending was so flat and so lame. And he said to me, it's like, you know what I think happened? I'm like, what do you think happened? And he said, I think Roman pulled a, that doesn't work for me, brother, and said, I'm not putting over the AEW guy. He swears he thinks that's what happened, and Roman has the kind of pull now where he can do something like that. I haven't seen that reported anywhere. I haven't seen anybody speculate aside from this friend. I haven't seen any of that. This was just him going off and saying what he thinks actually happened. And at the time when he said it, I was like, probably not. I'm sure, WWE, they were just thinking, it's like, we want him to get to 1,000 days, and they just kind of overthought it a little bit. But then when I saw that belt unveiled, I'm like, okay, if Cody wins that belt, that's going to lend a lot of credence to what my friend was saying, because it's like, is that belt going to be an apology to Cody because Roman didn't want to put him over? I don't know. It'll be very interesting. I'll if Cody wins it, I'll laugh, because it's like, it's the TNT title all over again, because in AEW, they backed themselves into a corner where Cody couldn't win the world title. That was the stipulation that they put in place. And Cody's position in the company, could he win the world title when he was like, the perception was that Cody owned the company, which he didn't, but that was the perception that people had. And if he had won the world title, people would have thought, oh, he's just putting the belt on himself. So it was kind of like, it was a tricky situation from the word go, but, I'm looking at this situation now, and it's like, okay, so they had to create the TNT title just to give Cody a belt to work with, and now it's like, if he wins that World Heavyweight title, it's going to be the same thing, where it's just, they had to create a belt for Cody to win because he couldn't win the the big boy belt, the Roman Reigns belt, and it'll be very interesting to see what ultimately happens. But this World Heavyweight title, not a fan of it. Yeah, I heard one idea that was pitched. It's like, this would have made a lot more sense if Cody had split the titles up. You know what I mean? Like, he beats Roman at Mania, and then he comes out and says that both brands deserve to have a fighting champion, and then like do the babyface move and actually take a small step down, and then vacate one of the championships so that there could be a tournament or something for everybody to go with that. Speaking of, whatever happened to that SmackDown championship belt that JBL was supposed to win until Batista went to SmackDown? Did they ever design that belt or anything? Like, I'd be very interesting to know like the full story behind that, if they ever had like a belt made or anything like that. But that's for another time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who ultimately wins that belt. That said, I'm not a fan of WWE having two world champions yet again. I think it's a bad move that's going to devalue a lot of the storylines and a lot of the improvements that they've made over the last year. It's just like, oh no, what are you doing? They were doing, I don't want to say they were doing everything right, but they were doing a lot of big things right. Heading into WrestleMania over the fall and the winter, and then past the Royal Rumble, and then heading into Mania, they were doing a lot of things right. And then everything was going well right up until Roman beat Cody, and then ever since then, it just feels like, what's going on? What are you guys doing? And is it Vince's influence? I don't know. I can't speak for that. I don't know who had made what decision or whatever. I'm not backstage. I'm not in on those meetings. Was it Vince's decision to have Cody lose at Mania? I don't know. Like, that's anything other than that is just speculation on my part. But I do know that WWE programming has become a lot less exciting post WrestleMania. After a WrestleMania that on paper was one of the best Manias ever, and then they kind of shit the bed in the main event, and then it's just been kind of plodding ever since then. It's not great. Not great. Speaking of not great, let's talk about AEW. But, okay, we have to go a couple weeks back on AEW because I have not commented on the announcement that they're going to be holding All In Wembley Stadium, the multi-thousand seat, like close to 90,000 seat stadium for an AEW show. And, people have been making fun of Tony and saying that, his announcements are just, they kind of go over like a wet fart, and it's like, oh, this big announcement, and it's like, I just signed a guy, and it's like, who cares? Oh, like, that's not really a big announcement, or, I just bought Ring of Honor, and like, why'd you do that? Unless you're going to do something with the tape library, I don't know why'd you do that, but this is one of the first times that Tony made a big announcement, and it felt like a big announcement. I was like, oh, they're going to do a stadium show. That's interesting. That is very interesting. And it's weird because, interest in AEW seems much lower now than it was a couple years ago. Even during the COVID era, where, it felt like the COVID era AEW shows were better than the WWE COVID era shows. And but it feels like ever since Cody left, that felt like the first brick in the wall where a lot of things started kind of falling apart. And interest in AEW is not at the fever pitch that maybe it once was, and they don't seem to have that momentum. So maybe there was a time a couple years ago where I felt like, go for a stadium show. Now I'm kind of like, I'm not going to sit here and say they can't sell out a stadium. I'm just very doubtful that they can. But I wish them all the best, and I hope it goes well, because if they pull that off, holy Moses, that would be amazing. But I'm thinking right now, like, what do you do to get people, to get everybody you possibly can to get into that stadium, aside from pulling things like lower ticket prices and things like that? But, like, what attractions can you put on that card to make people excited to go to a stadium show? And I'm thinking, all right, it's in London, you got to have some Brits on there. So I'm thinking, it's like, they better be calling Will Ospreay, they better be calling Zack Sabre Jr., I would get Nigel on the show in some capacity, not wrestling, but, get him on there. Maybe he could be the host of All In. I would get Nick Aldis. I know he doesn't have, like, the international brand or flavor that a lot of other guys do, but I would try to get Nick Aldis for sure. Maybe have him work with MJF. I think Nick Aldis is like, he's too good to not be seen by anybody. I feel like he was so good as the NWA World Champion, and then once he left there, I was like, okay, so he's got to pop up in WWE or AEW at some point, right? And no, he's like in Impact, and it's like, what? Come on, he's too good to just sit around and do nothing. But I would try to get Nick Aldis and play the British angle up to try and give him something to do. I would definitely set up Sting's retirement match to be in that stadium, because that would be a big way for him to go out. I think it would be great. I will legit shed tears when Sting retires. There's been a lot of talk about getting Goldberg possibly working with Wardlow. One idea that I had, I saw on it was either on the wrestling forums or it was on Twitter, I don't remember which, but they said, why don't they just have Goldberg work with Lance Archer and then just do a rip-off of the match he had with Sid at, I think it was Fall Brawl 99 or Halloween Havoc 99. I forget which one it was. The one that was that bloody-ass brawl that was awesome. Such a cool match. And it's like, yeah, let's just do that match again, but with Lance Archer. And I'm like, that would be pretty cool. I'd be down for that. But, I think getting Goldberg would be like a big attraction, especially, again, if they sell it as like Goldberg's retirement match. There's something you could potentially do with that and get an attraction, a specialty on the show. Because WWE, I mean, they... say whatever you want about Goldberg, and I personally feel like everything after the Lesnar match at Mania 33 has kind of like diminishing returns, where it's like, oh, he had that awful match with Undertaker, and oh, he squashed a guy again, and oh, he dropped a title in 2 minutes, and like various other things like that, where it's like, it doesn't feel as cool as it did when he wrestled Lesnar at 33, when that was like the perfect retirement match. But he did have an okay match with Lashley, I recall, having an okay match with him. And if Goldberg has some kind of an idea for a big retirement match, because he said that WWE promised him a retirement match, but they didn't really follow through on it. And of course, my comment was, it's like, you should have retired after 33. That was your match right there. But whatever. If he wants to do a big retirement match at this big stadium show, it's worth thinking about. I know a lot of people on the internet like to crap on Goldberg, but the guy is a legit attraction. He is a legit star, and people do tune in to see him. And if you want to fill a stadium, Goldberg isn't a bad idea. I'm just saying. Now, the big one that they should definitely think about doing, and I'm sure they are, and I'm sure that many phone calls have been traded already, and that is getting CM Punk on that show and getting him back in AEW. Because, and look, CM Punk is an abrasive dickweed. He absolutely is, and I'm sure he's a pain in the ass to deal with. But the guy generates interest and excitement, and I think there's talk right now that they're trying to figure out a way to incorporate him into AEW without having to cross paths with the Elite. And I'm thinking, like, if they can't get the Elite and CM Punk to work a program together, there's no point in bringing Punk in, because that's the match that everybody wants. Everybody wants CM Punk going up against the Bucks and Kenny Omega, and ideally with FTR as his partners, and doing that 6-man tag. You put that in the main event, that's the most exciting match that AEW could potentially do for a stadium show. Because it's one of those situations, it's like Matt Hardy and Edge back in 2005, where it's exciting because it's real. We know they hate each other. We know there's bad blood there. We all know about what happened after All Out last year, and to do this at the stadium show a year later would be amazing. And it would be like a great way to kind of like turn lemons into lemonade and turn a major negative, a major black eye on the promotion, and turn it into a major positive, because people, I believe, would tune in to see that match, because it would be interesting. Of course, the nerds like us would be looking for all the potatoes and all the cheap shots and things like that. It's like, are they gonna fuck with each other? Like, what's going on? And if I don't know if it's Punk, I don't know if it's the Elite or whatever, but if they don't see the value in working that program, then they should get out of wrestling, because they don't get it. Like, they don't get it. Like, dude, if I was in the wrestling business, which I wouldn't be, because I hate traveling and I hate being thrown to the ground, so I would never get into pro wrestling. But if I was, and I was in some kind of this big beef with somebody that spilled out into the larger world and everybody knew about it, I would be like, look, I don't like you, you don't like me, but everybody wants to see us have a match. Let's do this. Let's friggin' do this. Let's make some money. And be professional about it. And if they can't work with each other, then it's like, then what are we doing here? What's the point of even bringing Punk back? And then there's all this speculation. Well, first of all, Punk was seen backstage at Raw last night, which got everybody going crazy. It's like, oh my God, he's going back to WWE. He's going to show up tonight. And it turns out it looks like he was just there visiting people, which is not completely uncommon, but not a completely uncommon occurrence to have that happen and everything. But I've also heard that it came out that like Ricky Starks got in trouble for being backstage at the Royal Rumble because he was a guest of Cody's or something like that. And I'm just like, that's stupid to me, but whatever. But if that's true, I mean, like, if Ricky Starks got into some kind of trouble for doing that, that to me is stupid. But let friends be friends. That's my attitude. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so there's talk that because Punk and the Elite can't get along, they're going to give Punk his own show and basically do what's being called a soft brand split, like AEW Collision, and the Elite's going to stay on Dynamite, and Collision's going to be the CM Punk show on Saturdays. And I'm just like, again, it's like the new belt thing. It's like you can't just add a new show and think that's just more content for people to keep up with. That's not going to solve your problem. It's just going to water down the product even more. And I'm like, okay, they're doing Collision. They're going to cancel Rampage, right? Because Rampage sucks. Like, there's no point to that show, especially if they start doing a Saturday show with Punk on it. And it's like, okay, so Rampage should just be canceled, right? Like, there's no reason to have it. Dark and Elevation should just be canceled at that point, because having Collision on top of all that would just be overkill. And doing a soft brand split that I've heard about is stupid. I think it's completely stupid. Now, I will say this: if they wanted to start off doing it where Punk is Collision exclusive and the Elite is Dynamite exclusive, and then they kind of do something akin to what Ray and Dominic did, where Ray went to SmackDown to avoid Dominic. Of course, that was all storyline. This is friggin' real life. But where Ray wanted to be on a separate show from his son because he couldn't face his son, and then his son just wouldn't leave him alone and just kept pestering him and pestering him and pestering him, and then the walls just eventually broke down. It's like, you know what, screw it, I'll fight you at Mania. If they wanted to do something like that where they keep them separated at first, and then something breaks down to where Punk's like, you know what? Screw you guys. Collision versus Dynamite. Let's do that at All In, and let's do the big match. Punk versus Omega, or a 6-man tag, or something akin to that. Like, let's do something like that. There's money to be made there, especially with such a big stadium show coming up. I think that something involving Punk and the Elite has to happen at that show for it to be worth checking out. Whether you want to go to the show itself or you want to see an AEW Stadium show on pay-per-view. Like, it's got to be something big. And, you know, the Sting retirement match works. Goldberg works to some degree. If you're a British fan, you know, having guys like Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay will make you want to go to the stadium to see them. And that's really cool and everything, but you got to have that. I mean, that's your money angle. It's Punk versus the Elite. We have to have that match at the stadium. And if there's some kind of breakdown in communication where both sides don't want to work with each other, or one side doesn't work with the other, it's like, well, my advice is to grow up, be a man, admit that you don't have to like each other. I've worked with people that I don't like all the time. Granted, I've never gotten into a locker room fight with any of them, but I've worked with people that I don't like. Straight up just do not like. And 9 times out of 10, I've been able to put it aside and for the betterment of the job and the company to make it work. There was one occasion where it just could not be saved, and it wasn't me. I'll say that it was not me. That was unwilling to work with the other. It was the other side. But you know, I mean, people work with people they don't like all the time. That's life. That's growing up. That's being an adult. And this is a case where your mutual dislike of each other could actually help you make money and help make the show better. So I would jump at this opportunity if I were any of the parties involved. If I was one of the Bucks, I would have been the first one to call Punk and be like, let's make some money in London. Let's do this. If I was Kenny Omega, same thing. If I was Punk, I would have called them like right after it happened. Like right after the brawl out happened. It's like, hey guys, so we kind of blew the internet up. I think we can make some money off of this. And just say, look, I think you're a sack of shit, but I think we can make some money off of it. That's my take on the matter. And, you know, whatever AEW does, that's up to them. But there's, like I said, there's things they can do on this card, but I feel like they really need to have something that's Punk versus the Elite in some capacity. You know, and there, like I said, there's plenty of other things they could do. They could do MJF versus Nick Aldis. They could do Kenny versus Ospreay 2, which would be great, I think. They could do Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. I would actually, that's a match I would actually go out of my way to see. As a fan of wrestling, it's not like a major marquee match or anything, but it's one that's like, as someone who appreciates the art form, that's a match I would absolutely go out of my way to see. You know, they could do like Britt versus Jamie Hayter, or I'm sorry, like Jamie Hayter versus Saraya. You know, the two British girls going at it, they could do that. Like, there's plenty of things they could do. Maybe Marty Scurll, they want to give him a call. Has the statute of limitations on his banishment ended yet? Like, what's the deal there? But there's lots of things they could do. But if they want to do the best business possible for this stadium show, they got to do something between Punk and the Elite. I think that's the one match they have, or the one idea that they have, the one angle they have that could get people to really get excited about a stadium show. But that's just my take. So that is all I have for you now. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. If you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the little bell icon so you get notified when I post new videos. And be sure to check me out and my co-host Eric Clancy over at Weekday Warriors of Wrestling. And send your questions to our question and answer mailbag. The links and the email address for the mailbag are in the description. But that is all I have for you now. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and I will see you all later.